Joining us tonight, Congressman Ron DeSantis. He is a member of several key committees, including Oversight, Government Reform, Foreign Affairs, Judiciary. He has one of the largest committee portfolios in Washington, also the leading Republican candidate for the governorship of Florida. Congressman, good to have you with us. First, your reaction to the Mueller team statement that the president is no longer, if ever, a target of the investigation, the special counsel investigation, but now simply a subject.
Well, look, Lou, we've known that really from the start if you took the facts seriously. I mean, the president fires Jim Comey, and then on the basis of Rod Rosenstein writing a memo saying Comey should be fired, Comey leaks memos, including classified material, and then Rosenstein appoints a special counsel. For what purpose? There was never an underlying crime involving the president. And after all this investigation, there's been nothing, even with anybody on his campaign, in terms of the collusion angle. So I think we've come to the point now, Mueller wants to write a report. Knock yourself out, but I think this thing needs to be wrapped up.
You know, he wasn't hired and put in position to write a report. He was to investigate and determine whether or not there was anything to the original charge. It turns out the original charge was ether. There is no charge in his mandate. It's arguable, and I think convincingly so, that there should never have been a special counsel.
No, I agree with you. I think that there was, goes back to that Rosenstein appointing order. He said to look at possible links between Trump's campaign and anybody affiliated with Russia. Well, that's not in and of itself a criminal offense. What crime were you actually alleging? And they never really got to that point. And so everything that's been brought, the Manafort stuff, that had nothing to do with Donald Trump. That was way before the campaign. Michael Flynn and Papadopoulos, those were process crimes after the fact. They were really weak cases. I mean, Lou, did the Justice Department try to bring false statement charges against Huma Abedin or Cheryl Mills or Hillary Clinton? She spoke in front of the Benghazi committee and gave a lot of falsehoods about her email practices and handling classified information. So this thing, I think, has been problematic in that there was never a core crime. But then it seems like Mueller has just tried to get as many people under the net as possible. And so what you have is you have a much different level of zealousness in this case than you did with Hillary, where they bent over backwards not to make a case against her.
Do you think that the Hillary Clinton email case, will leave aside the foundation for right now, do you think there will ever be an adequate investigation of Hillary Clinton's email scandal?
One of the problems with it, at least for her, the initial mishandling of the classified, is you probably already passed the statute of limitations on that. What you're not past the statute of limitations is the destruction and the bleach bidding of the emails. I mean, think about it. Somehow Donald Trump obstructed justice by firing James Comey, which I think most of us look at today. I was supportive of it at the time, but that was a national service by firing James Comey. But how could you possibly say that could be obstruction of justice, but then bleach bidding emails that were under congressional subpoena are not? And yet that was never pursued. And then I think a lot of the false statements. So those two are still within the confines of the statute of limitations. I think if you actually had a special counsel, they would be able to finally bring some light to that.
And you've been calling for a second special counsel, along with Congressman Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, Matt Gaetz, and others. What's the likelihood now? It seems to dissipate, the odds seem to dissipate with each passing day.
Well, I'm in the process of working with some of my colleagues to catalog the different offenses that have been committed or may have been committed from kind of the tail end of the Clinton investigation through this FISA, through the dossier, all the way into Mueller with different people, the usual suspects, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, some of the folks in the Justice Department, and cataloging that and then providing.
We can call them, Congressman, the Dirty Dozen, because that's what they amount to.
And many of them have been fired. Some of them have been demoted. I think what's going to happen, Lou, is we're going to work on that. I want to present that to Sessions and to Huber so he knows what he should be looking for. But then when this IG report drops, I mean, it should have been done by now, involving how Comey handled and Loretta Lynch handled the Hillary case. That could be an impetus to do more at that point as well.
Not to prejudge it, because heaven knows we wouldn't want to do that with the Justice Department. But the IG's long-awaited and long-deferred report It looks like it has the potential for becoming a scandal all of its own. Your thoughts on the prospects now?
Well, we know McCabe got fired because of that investigation. We know the Strzok and Page text messages were found during that investigation. So my hope is that the misconduct is cataloged and that people like Strzok can be fired, removed from the government, and then obviously face whatever prosecutions may be warranted based on the evidence.
Should Rosenstein be fired for writing a memorandum a week after supporting the investigation of Manafort going back to 2006, a week after the special counsel raided his home a week later?
Look, it's a really screwy thing. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how it could have happened. Look, at a minimum, I think Rosenstein should be recused from this, Lou. He wrote the memo saying Comey should be fired. So now he's overseeing Mueller, supposedly investigating whether that constituted obstruction of justice. Give me a break. So I think he should be recused from this, and I don't think Sessions should have recused. So they got it backwards. Sessions recused, and now Rosenstein is supposedly directing traffic. I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Backwards seems to be often the rule in Washington, D.C. Congressman, great to see you. Thanks for being with us tonight.